Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Listen Bitch podcast. This is the show where we're going to stop living on autopilot. We're going to stop playing small and stop pretending that God did not put a calling on our lives. Okay. I am your host, Brandon Lynette. And around here, I'm not going to coddle your potential. Okay. I'm here to activate it. So we do that with faith and purpose and personal responsibility and really that uncomfortable truth of stepping into who you're called to be. And it's usually less about motivation and more about maturity. Okay. Some days, yeah, I'm handing out encouragement. Some days I'm handing out tough love, but most days it's both. Okay. Because becoming who you're meant to be will slap you and save you at the exact same time. And today I have a guest who gets that level of discomfort and purpose. I have Alain Dumonceaux. He is a coach, a mentor, and a man who rebuilt his identity after divorce, bankruptcy, and the quiet war that I think every man fights inside with their own purpose. Okay. He's all about integrity, mission, and what it looks like for men to actually lead, not, that performance level, not for self-protection, not spiritually tap out, but like lead themselves and their family and their lives. So we're going to talk about purpose, imposter syndrome, and the messy parts of growth and why the things we care about the most are the things we sabotage first. Okay. So, Alan, sir, I'm so happy that you're here today. Thank you so much.
Brandon, sister, listen, I just so grateful that you're asking me to come on the show. I don't get a chance to speak to too many female audiences, and so I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Hopefully, it can provide a ton of value for your audience, and we can answer maybe some questions that we'd like to ask and we weren't sure to. It's a safe space you can ask me, and we can just tackle a ton of topics, whatever's on your plate.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. And this is cool for me because this is going to get all of my wives to get their husbands to tune in. So we just upped our viewership, and then it's going to be a great way for you guys to get resource with Ellen as well. So I'm very excited about that. So I mean, everybody talks about imposter syndrome like it's this cute little self-doubt moment, but a lot of people, and I experience this, it is actually identity collapse. It's the who the hell am I to do this moment, and it's just so much shame that
Mhm.
that's performing. Most people don't recover from that, they retreat. So when you're rebuilding after divorce and bankruptcy, what did imposter syndrome actually sound like inside your head? How did you recognize it for what it was instead of surrendering to it?
Yeah, well, I'd like to say that I actually didn't surrender to it, but I did for a little while. It took me a couple of years to really get out of that funk. And part of it is because, and I think a lot of men will agree with me on this, is that we wrap our identity so much into one aspect of our life. And usually it's around this provider aspect. So that means our career, our business, the thing that we go out and do. And so when we do that, well, we may be so successful in one aspect of our life or one layer we forget that there are other things that are important to us. We were all born of relationship, and as a man and listening to having other men that come and do our work, they would agree with me that we love to be in relationship, but we don't know how what that means and what that looks like. And so we focus on this one aspect. And then when that gets pulled out from underneath you, whether that's through divorce or job loss or anything, then we struggle to find out what our identity is because we have attached so much of it to this one thing. And so then we start to wonder, and our imposter syndrome comes in, we start to question, what does it mean for me to be a man now? Because I don't have this crutch to sit on. And so that journey is really the journey that led me to doing this men's work and really starting to understand and unravel the ideas and the things that were going on in our head. And how do we get that out in a way that can be safe enough for our partners and our wives to hear that? Because we aren't great communicators, generally speaking. And what ends up by happening is that we just tend to stay in this shell. And so really, when I look at imposter syndrome, it's truly a self-acceptance scale. And so at one end of it, we have the imposter syndrome. But I can tell you that's not where I started. I started as a very successful, chef in my earlier years here in the early 90s and competed in the Culinary Olympics. And I would say my self-acceptance on that scale was all the way on the other end where I was very confident. I didn't need to seek any type of approval. I just knew what I could do. However, once that got pulled out from underneath me, then I had to deal with the idea of not being enough. I'm not enough any longer. This didn't everything I thought that was going to help me be successful in all aspects of life, absolutely was not.
What is
And yet
the
I had put so much of myself into it.
like you had the success, you had all the things, you were doing amazing, you're on the opposite end of the spectrum. What I this is the thing that I want my audience to understand. Life doesn't pause for everybody, right? Like you're in the arena, it's going to come at you. It's not going to wait and be like, "Oh, Alan, you're doing so great. So all this stuff that's going to come at you, we're just going to hold it off because you're just doing great." Like what was that moment where the rug got pulled out from under you?
Well, it was the moment that my first wife said that that's it, we're done, and she moved on and she moved out. And being completely oblivious to the things that were happening around me and not really understanding that there were problems for sure in our relationship. I had married my high school sweetheart. There was visions of, you're going to die together, everything will be going to be great. We're going to live forever. Everything will be outstanding. And the truth of it and the reality of it is it wasn't a rom-com movie. It was actually a horror show
Oh,
because he didn't spend any time really developing and building that relationship. So the moment that I came home and then she was no longer wanting to be there or willing to be there and had moved on, I had to reassess what was happening in my life and what the hell was I going to do? And so it took a bit of time to, I ended up by having losing my job, and that was part and parcel of the bankruptcy, not being able to pay bills. We had just bought a house, had our second child, so many things were piling on and hadn't really planned on what this was life was going to look like. And that's when it really started to resonate and realize for me that, okay, there's more to life than just, being successful at work. What didn't I pay attention to? And the question I kept asking myself is, how can I be so successful in one aspect of life and suck in the rest? And when I realized that I was approaching life and the rest of my life and taking it for granted and not paying attention and putting the same type of effort and energy as I was in my professional life, then what else was the outcome going to be? And I think a lot of couples do that in their relationship. They get to that point where I don't have to try anymore because I come home and I know they're going to be there. And then when we start living in that lie, then we start to having issues in our relationship because we don't realize what it is that we're doing.
right. And I think, I mean, I'm not a man, but I'm married to one, and I know there's just this great single focus. He has that. I have 100 tabs open at any given time, and my brain is very neurospicy, and he's very just single focused. And I feel like the whole masculinity conversation, honestly, just today is a mess. And there is this fake tough guy performance, the spiritually castrated version, and then there's mission, which is very rare. And
Mm.
you talk about that. You talk about men being on a mission. So how can they encompass that? Like, what does that actually mean? Because a lot of men just think that mission is money or status or being useful. So how do you break that open to where masculinity means more than just one thing?
Well, we've evolved that from talking about mission to in looking at what it means to live a life of integrity. And to truly have mission and a life of integrity, we have to look at more than just the one aspect, as I started off our conversation today in our business life. And so we focus on our work on 6 core pillars, and they're financial, emotional, spiritual, physical, professional, and of course, relationships. And a lot of times what I find with guys is that we don't even consider the opportunity of what living in integrity means. So what does it mean to live in integrity in my marriage? Well, that's part of that is having a conversation with our spouses. But even before getting to that conversation about what does that look like for them, are we even paying attention? Do we know the likes and the dislikes of our wives? Do we know what her favorite color is, what her favorite food is, what her favorite activities are, and how are we participating in that? And I think you can still be, I'm still extremely single focused. I'm still eight type personality. I want to go out and make things happen.
Oh,
And at the same time, I'm also more conscious today than ever about what is the impact to my relationship. And so today we're recording this in the early evening, but I've always made a commitment to my wife that this is what's going on. We share calendars. She sees what's going on, and I commit to her that I will be out of the office no later than 8 p.m. this evening.
yeah.
Why is that important? Because in that past, I just would have went to work, until all hours of the night and then just checked in a little bit. That doesn't build a relationship. That doesn't bring any integrity into it. And so when we start to recognize how it is that we're showing up, and I have a questionnaire, a thing, I call it an integrity mirror that I put guys through so they can decipher for themselves what aspect, what pillar do they really need to start focusing on. And then once we have that, we can start building legacy. And legacy is so much more than money. It's so much more than having any type of wealth and financial abundance. It's truly about what is the memory we want to leave for the ones that are closest to us, and then we say that we care for. And then what are those steps and actions that we can take towards building that legacy? Because the legacy takes a long time to build, and it only takes a moment to really end up by destroying it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love so much that you're talking about integrity because I think that is the core foundation for anyone that's male or female is that if
Mhm.
you can lock in on your core integrity, then it makes being you so much easier. And like our purpose is to come here for this human experience to be the best version of
Yeah.
ourselves. It's not to fix everybody around us or to make everybody else happy. It's you literally get yourself right and get on your mission. So staying in integrity, I think that's powerful. Plus, you guys, it's exhausting to be anything but yourself. And so
Mm.
if you don't align on what you hold, your core ethics, your core values, like that makes everything so much easier. You cannot skip that step of really getting to know who you are yourself. Like who is Alan without the wife? You know,
That's
who is he? And once you become whole as a person, it's a beautiful, I mean, that's how we can come together. That's how you take these two humans who we are so wired differently. We are so different. Like, how
right.
could we
Yes.
live together? And if we're both in our integrity and our power, communication is so important, though. And I think, any marriage that destructs, it's going to take two people. So I don't
Yeah.
want my ladies on here, suddenly attacking their husbands. Like, Alan sets a time, he's out of his office by 8 p.m. And I mean, you have to communicate these things. Like, that's probably something that your wife was like, hey, can we set some boundaries here? I want you
Mm.
off the clock at 8 o'clock. I do the same thing with my husband, like no work talk from this hour to this hour. Then if, here's your venting minute, go crazy about work, go to work and leave it there. Like when, there's
Yes.
boundaries, but you have to communicate that stuff. And I just want to say that I think that's very important.
I just made a note here. You're talking about values. It's another aspect that we really spend a lot of time in because a lot of times, for the most of us, I would say that we borrow our values.
Yeah.
We've borrowed them from years gone by, and we never take a moment to assess if this value is still serving me. So and I go back to this work example. We may think that what we value as a man is that I need to be able to provide for my family. And I may say that and of course, if I'd ask any guy, I'd say, well, do you value your family? Sure. But what are your actions towards that? And how are you actually showing up? And so the values conversation is so important because it's not in a relationship, it's not about losing your identity. It's actually about claiming it so that the other partner, the other half, understands what your identity is for both partners. And so, yes, in my example of, hey, be in the office, be out by 8, but that's because Kim and my wife and I have had the conversation about what do I value and how can she honor what I need and how can I honor what she needs, and so that we can have some form of balance. Now, I'm not at all saying that there should be this perfect work-life balance. Work and relationships are always on an endless teeter-totter. Sometimes it shifts, sometimes it changes. I rarely ever see that it's ever perfectly balanced for any length of time. But if you don't have that conversation and understand truly what each other values, then how are you going to be able to show up that honors that for one another? And so for me, it really about relationships and marriage is really about a we program. And that we program starts with, so I can be the best that I can to serve this relationship. And if she does the same, then we can start building on things. And when we hit the rocky roads, like all relationships do, at least we have a foundation that we can go from.
Exactly. And I think, especially for relationships, like social media is not your friend because you're going to read some post about, ladies, if he wanted to, he would. And I used to get caught up in that. And there was a point of like treat people how you want to be treated, but that got taken too far, which I still think that's a general core, but my
Yeah.
husband's masculine. If he started writing me poetry and crying at like every whim, he wouldn't be my husband, right? Like I would have just married a version of myself and that's that's not how it works. So I feel like shut off all the noise forever.
Mm.
Like if someone makes a comment about, relationships or, you know, it's really that thing. If he wanted to, he would. I see that going around so often. And my thing is, if you want it, you ask for it,
Hmm.
you know, and that's what it's like. It's that solid communication. But life is chaotic, and you talk about creating, order out of chaos, and I think purpose does that, but it's not instant, right? Like sometimes answering the calling actually increases chaos at first because everything that can't come with you gets shaken loose. Like you're in a rebuilding moment when you step into that purpose. So what do you think men, and honestly all humans, so men and women, misunderstand about their purpose, especially in that messy middle phase where it looks like their life is falling apart? Because I know for a fact that even in a successful marriage, it wasn't just easy. Finding yourself, figuring it out. I know it's not easy. So what do you think people misunderstand about that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brandon. I think the first thing that we forget or we misunderstand is that everything is changing when you're going on mission. You can't bring everything that you had in the past or try to keep everything that was in the past so you can move forward. Mission automatically says that you're going to have to leave something and some people behind. That's a real tough pill for some of us to swallow. Hey, it's a tough pill for me to swallow once in a while. But the challenge with it is that if you truly want to be on mission, things need to change. And so while I had, I ended up by losing everything in my early 30s, this current marriage I was in, and just about blew that one up as well, 7 or 8, well, almost 10 years ago now. And it took me a hard lesson to learn at that point, even though I'd done all this work, that it doesn't matter what you know. If you don't implement anything, then nothing is actually going to change. And so the key piece here is that when you're on mission is what are you willing to change? What needs to die? Right? And some of the things for me that needed to die is this being this nice guy. And so I thought after how everything fell apart in my first marriage that if I was just a nice guy and not be so bullheaded and try and get things done, come home at work like I did do at work, well, then maybe things will go better. But the problem with that approach is that I also lost my identity about who I was. And so I wasn't willing to stand up for myself and I wasn't willing to do things. And so it became a doormat. That's not my wife's fault. That's mine. That's mine for saying this is okay behavior. And so we lost boundaries. We had no boundaries as a couple. And so to, circle back to the point of your question is that we have to be prepared that during this messy chaos, as you have mission, you won't necessarily have clarity yet. You have a long-term goal that you're attaining, but it's in the moment that you're living. And so each day becomes a tiny little battle of what it requires of you to show up. And we like to work in blocks of a week at a time. Not the inventor of this, Stephen Covey. I learned that from him years ago. I implemented it from my work to what I do now and in relationships. And it's amazing when we can actually take the time to carve off while I'm on mission. What are those core pieces? And I ask guys to stay really take, even though we do 6 pillars, you're probably going to work on 2 to 3 at any given time at most, and making sure that relationship stays in there. Because who wants to work your butt off all, for most of your life, and then to either lose it all through divorce or other things, or the partner that you spent all this time building things with, they happen to pass away.
Yeah.
And now you have the time and there is no time to enjoy life. So we have to think about being on mission. Well, it's a long-term goal. It's really in shorter blocks of time. And what can I do? And can I get 1% better? And I think I got that idea out of Atomic Habits about being in 1% better and over the course of the year, the exponential growth. And it's not rocket science, but it does take effort. It does take work. And I think we don't realize how much work it takes to keep all that other stuff
Yeah.
that used to come forward and say, no, I just can't bring that forward anymore. The way I lived the relationships before, there are some friendships that I no longer have today. They're still friends, but the amount of effort is different today than it was back, even 5 years ago, because I'm in a different place.
Right. And that's our point is to grow and evolve. And I love what you're saying about, making the effort to be 1% better, because that's the point. Like you guys are going to wake up and not every day is going to be 100% a day. It's just not. But if I could do just one little thing to move the needle, that's it. So I don't want you guys looking at this huge project of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fix my marriage. I'm going to go on mission. I'm going to get this. I'm doing all this. It's literally just like one day at a time. And it's important to stay in that present moment or you kind of
Mm.
miss the whole point of life. It's not trying to get to that next, level or accomplishment or goal. It's like actually genuinely just enjoying it, you know, one thing
Absolutely. And
at
and today's A day maybe yesterday's B day.
yeah,
Right. And so, or C day. And so, try not to measure ourselves on, well, yesterday was a much better day than today. It might have been there. And then it might be a journal exercise to say, well, what changed? And there might be nothing that you could change. It's just the way the day was. And so also to be mindful of it isn't always exponential growth. Life is like a stock chart, right? You have ups and downs. You have some times that the downs are pretty big, but generally speaking, you're on an upward trajectory. And that's the goal. Is just continue to improve, do a little reflection, do some refinement, and keep going and keep moving forward. But we get stuck in thinking that if I don't get it right, then I no longer want to try. And that can be really detrimental.
absolutely getting stuck on that. But something else that I think is really detrimental is that sabotage and the self-betrayal. I mean, you say men sabotage the things they care about most because women do it too. And I literally have coached women who will burn down their whole calling to avoid discomfort. I've done that more than once, just burned it all down. It's pretty universal. And I know like what's actually happening. I've learned it's not laziness, it's just fear. And we have this like intense loyalty to old identities and then
Hmm.
we add pressure on top of that. Why do you think that people sabotage the very things they say they want? And did you notice a specific pattern in your own life before you shifted this?
Yeah, another fabulous question. Absolutely, there is a pattern there. And the pattern is actually goes back to something we talked about just a few minutes ago. And it is this idea of this imposter syndrome. It's when we start to feel like, oh no, if I do this, I don't think I can do it. And then if I can't do it, then, will I be liked and accepted? And ultimately, what I found is that normally everything comes down to it shows up as fear for us, but it baked in that fear is this idea of just not being enough or not being liked. And so the fear is like, well, if I do this, then I might lose a friendship or I might lose my relationship. But the reality of it is that's more than likely not going to happen, especially if you've been building and working on the relationship. And what you're all you need is just somebody to be in your corner to help get you through. Because I'd like to say, you know what, I did all this work on my own, but it's not the truth. There's one aspect of my life that I just cannot be trusted in, and that is my nutrition and my physical health. And so last year, I decided to stop playing around with it and I hired a fitness coach. And so we all need a coach. We all need someone to help support us. And I think part of the challenge is that, especially for men, is that we have this idea of the three most dangerous words that we tell ourselves is that I got this. And you might have it for a little bit, but I'm going to tell you overall, you don't got this. And you need something much bigger. We need something much more powerful, whether you call that God or a higher power or whatever, but something else to help guide you. And if you don't have that true North Star, something that can anchor you, and it can't be your spouse, and that's a fatal flaw because now you're putting so much pressure on that relationship, on that individual, that it's more than they should be bearing. And so we need to have something bigger. And so the moment that we recognize that we can step outside of, I don't got this, I got some things, I can take some action and look for some higher purpose, some higher resolution, you will find that things move much simpler. And as soon as I was able to surrender to that and recognize that, yeah, I don't necessarily got this. And so when I did come to those moments of doubt and fear, there was something to turn to. And sure, through mentors and masterminds or other things, but even more importantly, over all of that, was really getting a connection with my spiritual side.
Mhm. I think that's super important. And we put like a lot of weight on our guys so much, I think, that it is taboo to ask for help. It's not cool. Like as a culture, right? We want that benefit of masculine leadership without the burden. We want our men to be strong, but never struggle, be present, but never pressured, decisive, but never wrong, protective without being toxic. Like, no wonder why our guys are checking out.
Mhm.
It's a lot of pressure. What does healthy masculine responsibility really look like to you? And what does it require that our culture has forgotten?
Yeah, for me, healthy masculinity requires an opportunity, first and foremost, for the individual to understand who they are. And the only way you can do that is you have to be willing to accept that you are exactly where you are today because of the choices and the decisions you made. And if you can accept that this is where I am today based on what has happened in the past, then you can start to accept that I can now take ownership for how I show up. And so healthy masculinity is that person that moves from, maybe you were aggressive in the past, but today you're assertive. That's a very different approach. You're giving space for that other individual to exist and yet still having a strength of power and presence. And that takes a bit of work for some of us. Some of us still, because we haven't learned to really master our emotions, we get caught up into it and then we blow up, which is part of the reason why we don't want to have difficult conversations. We don't want to get involved. And I would say that in order to really develop your healthy masculine self is to get in those messy conversations. And I wouldn't suggest taking the most messy one you have in your life and just start with something small. Maybe just picking up the clothes or taking out the garbage, or something that isn't going to break down the relationship. And then the second thing I think is once you've really understood where you are, and then what healthy masculinity would look like, then you start to exercise that. And I think for me, that means being able to say no when you really mean it. It means also being able to make decisions instead of procrastinating it. I see a lot of men deflect decision making to their spouses. As simple as, "Hey, hon, want to go out for dinner tonight?" She says yes. "Where do you want to?" And then you're like, "Where do you want to go?" Or she goes, "Where do you want to go?" And you say, "Well, wherever you want to go."
Mhm.
Our wives, gentlemen, spend all day long making decisions, just like you do. And if she's raising a family, she has even more decisions on her plate. It would be nice once in a while if you could make that decision. Again, that comes back to knowing what are your wife's likes and dislikes. What are the places she likes to go? How kind of an evening would she enjoy? We can start making those decisions. To me, that's what healthy masculinity looks like. It isn't about ripping our shirt off and,
Right.
and pounding on our chest. It is about showing up and being present and being secure in who we are. And that means being able to make decisions, the smallest ones for sure. And then when it comes to bigger ones, having deeper family conversations and then making a decision. I think this is what we should do. My wife and I right now are talking about, we're in the midst of renewing our mortgage, and we're looking at, we're getting close to where we would consider what retirement looks like. So what does the next 5 years look like?
Yeah.
And so we've talked it out. I made a decision on, I think we should do this, this, and this. What do you think? I get some feedback, and then we make it, and then the decision's made. Okay, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And now both of us are on the same page and we understand how we're going to proceed. But we not had that conversation and I just deflected it to her, well, then really all I've given my wife is another child,
Yeah.
an adult child. And women, I would suggest, don't want to be raising an adult child. And unfortunately, for many of us men, we have more of a boy syndrome than we do have a toxic masculinity syndrome.
Ah, I love that you made that statement because I see that in a lot of ways and in a lot of people that I talk to that I'm, coaching in their relationship struggles. I think that's a huge thing. But I also think that we have an accountability problem
Mm.
for women too. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, number one, guys, I just want you to know, like, you cannot take our emotions personally. Like, we're gonna have feelings. Like, just let us feel them. You don't have to freak out. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Like, that's my feeling. It's not a big deal. Don't take it personal, right? You're not responsible for making me happy. That's my job. But not taking feelings, I think, and emotions personally, especially if you're on a journey of just self-discovery and that emotional maturity. It's a fact, guys bloom later with emotional maturity. I don't know why. I don't know why. But it That's just how it goes. So both
Well,
ways.
I think that's a great point, Brandon. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. That's such a great point. I just want to, expand on that a little bit. I think part of the challenge for us, for men, is that when we deal with emotions, it's high impact. So it's going to be high energy, boom, and we're in it and we deal with something. Mostly when that happens during moments of anger or fear, frustration that shows up like that. But in an emotional experience with our spouses, it's going to be, while it may be explosive, it's actually more of a simmer. And so we don't know how to be in that place. And I'm going to offer your listening audience, those are the men that'll be listening to this episode, is all she needs us to do is just to be present, just to be there. And being engaged and listening to her and asking, tell me more.
Yeah.
Because I would suggest that for the most part, there's a process that's happening that's different for women than it is for men. We tend to be more compartmentalized, and there's more of a flow with energy from women. And if we can just be present in there, tell me a little bit more. Try not to be in the fix it mode. Try not to be engaging. You can ask if that's what she needs, but just being present and being able to be there and not want to shy away from it is such a huge difference in how we handle relationships. It was my experience. It continues to be my experience that whether it's in my own relationship or working with other men, that when we can just be present, tell me a little bit more. How can I support you in this? What are the next things that we can do as a couple to, if it's a couple's challenge, to help us through this? Being able to be more about a solving the problem versus trying to just problem solve everything on her behalf because she probably doesn't need that.
Right. And she's going to try to do that too. I mean, that's had to be an honest conversation when my husband's going through something. I'm like, all right, do you just want to vent or do you want solutions? Because my brain is a fix it brain. And I'm like, let's fix it. Here's your solution. Boom. And then I'm mad because he doesn't do it. And that's because he didn't really want a solution. He just needed to vent. Right. But at the same time, I don't wait for him before I set my boundaries. If I'm going through something, like if I have a creative week, right? I'm like, man, I have a lot of episodes, or I'm writing a book this week. This is my boundary. Like, I can't have you freaking
Mm.
out. Like, whatever's going on here, I need you to compartmentalize this because I can't carry it today. Like, it
Right.
is just genuinely, I don't expect him to know what I'm always going through. I don't have fire creative weeks all the time. But when I do, I'm like, hey, babe, this is really a lot. So
Mm.
I need you to do this. I need this done for the kids. Like, I'm checked out right here. It's done. So it's important not to take, he doesn't take that personal, right? Like,
Right.
it's important that we don't take each other's feelings personal, or that
Nice.
ladies, like when your guy, lashes out of anger, it's usually fear. He's
Hmm.
scared of something and he's never had the okay to just be like, man, I'm kind of scared. Part of that masculine thing. Like, it's just a different emotion. So just giving him that space to have his feelings and then coming back to that, right? Like, let people have their feelings. Nobody needs to fit in a cookie cutter box. I watch the Hallmark movies all the time. Okay, clearly it's not reality. So if there's any part of you that's like, well, I watch these movies and these guys are just always so spot on, they're paid actors. Okay, it's a script, and unfortunately, that's definitely not real life.
Yeah.
Life is messy, and that's the beauty of it though, right? Because it gets messy, your hands are dirty, you guys are in it. Every single thing we go through, I'm like, hell yeah, we did that. It sucked
Yeah.
and we did it. Like, that's so cool. And it's, that perspective, and just giving each other space, and it really isn't rocket science. It's like, let's treat each other like humans and not
Mm.
forget that we're not the same. Men and women are not the same. We're not created the same. Our bodies aren't the same. Our minds aren't the same. Our hormones aren't the same. Our emotions aren't the same. Our processing system, 100% different. And that is black and white. There is no
Yeah.
little area. We are very different, you know? Um, okay. So this is my thing, that I want to ask you about today. Like, motivation, yeah, it's cute. But it's unreliable, right? It's
Mhm.
it's like the mistress of life. But purposeful action, that to me is just like solid. I mean, it's biblical to me, really, like obedience, the stewardship.
Mhm.
And those are words that like nobody wants to touch because it implies accountability.
Yep.
So, how do you define that purposeful action and why does it matter more than motivation in the long term and the rebuilding and that experience in the arena right now?
Yeah. Be having purposeful action means that I'm willing to take accountability. No, I'm going to change that. I'm willing to take responsibility for my life. I think there's two things that we can do. We can either be held accountable. I did that when it came to my physical fitness and nutrition, or we can be responsible. Sometimes we need a little bit of both. So when we have purposeful action, it means I'm taking to take responsibility for what happens in my life in this for this day and for this week and for whatever that part block of time that you're working in. And what that does is it's freeing.
Yeah.
It actually is freeing because you get to have some say in what is going to happen today. Now, of course, Creator will give you may tease you and give you something different, curveball, see how you work because there's some growth and development that you're unaware of that needs to happen. That's okay. But you have a purposeful meaning, reason to get up. It's more than, and it's far more than intention. And intention just means it's like dreaming. It's like, yeah, I intend to go to the gym, but did I go?
Right.
Purposeful action means I pack my bag the night before. It's sitting by the back door, ready for me to go. I have my lunch prepared. I have my water bottle ready to go. Everything is ready. All I have to do is get out of bed and walk out the door. That's purposeful action. If I had an intention to do it, I probably wouldn't even have packed my bag the night before because I intend to do it in the morning. But I live in Canada here. We just went through some really sub-zero temperature here, mine in the minus 30 degree Fahrenheit.
Now we're
So pretty cold. It doesn't matter. The purposeful action was I have a commitment to myself to stay in shape, to make sure that I can be the best person I can be for myself and for my family and my wife. And so I do it. But if we live with this intention or this idea of motivation, motivation lasts a fleeting moment. I'm While I enjoy going to the gym now, it's still a struggle to get on the treadmill. And so, what's my motivation? Well, I like a little upbeat, fast-paced music to be playing that keeps me going. So I developed a playlist. That is the motivation, but my deeper than that is that my purpose is to do this because I know the result that I'll have when it comes in weigh-in day and measurement day and picture day
right.
that I'm putting in that I did the work, that I actually took responsibility for it instead of maybe thinking I'm going to do it.
How important is that in a relationship? Because I'm huge on this. I'm huge on like I know when my husband's had an off week and he hasn't done the workouts and we ate like crap, like we are just like bleh. We are not good for ourselves and we're not good for each other. So how important is it that we are taking responsibility to do the things that make us feel good? That means like feeding our bodies, feeding our mind, feeding our soul, exercising, like making these choices that matter the most. How impactful is that on a relationship?
It is so impactful. If we're not willing to take responsibility for our own actions, then how can we expect our partners to do anything different? And so as men, it's up to us to lead our family and lead our wives. What does that mean? That doesn't mean I tell my wife what to do. It means I take responsibility for how I'm going to show up. And so that was this physical fitness journey. And kudos to my wife watching it happen to see how long Al was going to actually keep on doing this. And it's been a year now. And so it's been baked in. And so that's what it means for us to truly start to lead. And when we do that, then the relationship starts to come into alignment. There's some trust being built. And I think when we do fall off the wagon, my motto is, okay, it's one in a row. Can I get back to one in a row? Just do one, just do it once again, and then start over. Instead of measuring myself against something that may be a past example. Like there was a point I think I hadn't missed a workout in 90 days. Like it was straight on, solid, just kept on going. And then I missed one. And so I could have beat myself up and I was a little disappointed, but go back to one in a row. It's one. Who's this for? This is for me to get better. It's my the conversation I have with God about leading me and guiding me so I can be a better man, a better husband for my wife, and then just getting after it. And then, okay, let's go back and let's get back to one in a row. And when we can have that mindset instead of the all or nothing, well, I missed it. So now that means I suck and I might as well not do it. That's the
All
imposter
done-
syndrome kicking in.
We've all
That's what's, go ahead.
we've all done that. Just, you know, I've done it with like, I'm done with sugar. I have sugar and then I'm eating like pounds of sugar for the next month and a half. Or I miss the gym for a day and I'm like, I can't show up the next day. Everybody's going to know I miss when nobody cares about me. Like nobody knows I'm walking. Who was it for? It was for me and I missed that. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't go for months. And it's, we've all done that. So I don't want you guys to think you're special
No.
because you stopped there because that, you don't get a gold star for suffering or beating yourself up. It just doesn't happen. Um,
Suffering's a choice.
exactly. And I, just what's the next right thing to do, you guys? It's not that hard. It's literally
Yeah.
just let everything go. All right, what's the next right thing? I'm going back to the gym. I'm going to go do the thing that makes me feel good. I know my day calibrates on if I pick up my phone before I pick up the Bible, I'm done.
Hmm.
Like it I don't feel the same. I don't feel connected. I don't feel grounded. I don't feel whole and it affects everything. It affects how I respond, how I move. I'm a little shorter. I'm a little more impatient. And I think these things are super important that you have to do the things for you. You have to fill your cup. You have to do what is good for you. If I, don't get the treadmill done in the morning, I feel like I never get it done. Again,
Yeah.
another non-negotiable for like, I'm going to do it, just doing those things. And I know when I feel good, I'm such a better wife. When I feel
Hmm.
good about me, I'm like the greatest. When you're not
Yeah.
feeling good about yourself, like it wears away at stuff. So,
It's a great point, and I'm sure the relationship is honest, and you guys have those conversations. One of the things that we do, and I coach my men, is that you need to have a weekly check-in. You have the weekly check-in with your wife, and our thing is, it's a simple question. Hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are we in our relationship this past week? And if we're anything below a 7, what can I do different? What could have happened differently? And then you have those honest conversations because to your point, we are going to slip and fall. We are going to not things aren't going to work as well as we had hoped and had planned. But having some responsibility for the relationship and then having that conversation with each other, gives us that chance to reconnect and recalibrate. And that's really what life is all about. Just to reconnect, recalibrate, and then go back and do a better job next time. And I think when we stay in that moment, really, then I think life goes much, much better.
it does. And perspective matters.
Mm.
Right? If you're the person that's going to wake up and just think the world is out to get you and life sucks, everything sucks, the world hates you, like everything in your life is going to reflect that. I think it's huge to make a choice to wake up with gratitude. And it shifts everything. It shifts everything in you and it aligns you. It just keeps you more you, right? If you
Yeah.
it's just staying in that in your identity and your core purpose and it makes you you. But there's okay, so you say reflection is noble, imitation is easy, experience is bitter, and I love that because suffering is a teacher. Like when you go through stuff, it's to teach you something. Like how is this happening for me?
Mhm.
What can I learn from this? It's not a curse. And I feel like, you kind of said it earlier, we ask God to elevate us and then we complain about the training, but he's just helping prepare us. So, what wisdom did suffering give you that just reflection and imitation never could?
Yeah, I think for me, the piece of suffering was reminding myself that, I never want to go there. And the man that was in that time in his life, what parts of him still exist today? And there are always going to be parts of ourselves that still exist today. And that's why suffering continues to come forward. And that's why I say it's also a choice. And so the choice is then, what do I want to do with this suffering? And how can I use it as a lesson? And how is this showing up for me today differently than it did back then? Because part of the challenge is that we get stuck in this story we've wrapped the suffering around, and it's a historical story that is inaccurate because we put so much stuff on it, so much garbage around it, and we're not that person anymore. And so for me, even though, suffering or experience is the bitterest, it is also in the end the sweetest because I get an opportunity now to change and rewrite that story in the moment. I can make a different choice. And so when things were collapsing in my first marriage and things were starting to go that way in the second one, I was able to start to make that change. My wife gave me the grace to be able to do that work and to witness the work happening. But there was an opportunity to change. Otherwise, what was going to? And so while the suffering is painful, it's not about wallowing in it and sitting in it. It's not a mud bath. It's an opportunity for us to brush ourselves off and learn from that lesson. And sometimes you can do some of that work on your own. And I would suggest that the best action to take is to truly work with somebody else to help bring different perspective, because your perspective is going to be caught in the old stories, your life experiences, and you may not be able to see outside of that. And so having conversations like we're having today and hiring coaches to help you work through some seasons in your life are the things that help build and change who we are. And that's really the work that, I learned from having some suffering in my life. And when I still encounter it today, there's a different skill set. And there's more grace allowed for myself today than there has ever been. And that doesn't mean I don't take accountability and responsibility for my actions. It does, but I don't take more than that
Right.
and look at, okay, if I change this approach, then things can be different. And if there's amends to be made, then definitely make the amends. But to continue to learn and to grow, so that suffering can play a smaller role and just do the role that it was intended to be, which is really a forge to help us grow and evolve as individuals.
Which is our whole purpose. Like if we're not growing, we're not living, and complacency is kind of a slow death, and I wouldn't recommend that at all. Before we close today, I want to give you a last little question here. My audience is full of called people, okay, who know that there's something on their life, but they keep waiting, whether it's for permission or certainty. So if someone is stuck in that limbo right now, what's the one thing they need to stop doing today and the one thing they need to start doing if they're serious about answering their calling?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you're truly serious about answering your calling and stepping into it, then I'm going to recommend what you need to do first and foremost is you have to go back and examine your commitment to why. Why are you doing it? And when we start in that place there, then it will give us the ideas and the methods to take step forward. And if we do take our commitment seriously, then we can start to break down this idea of the imposter syndrome we're talking about today. And then the next thing, in order for you really to have committed, you need to have some clarity as well, and understanding why, not just why I'm doing this, but what's the deeper piece of it. And when I work with men, and you can use women for women as well, you can ask yourself, as I'm the kind of person, woman, man, who, and anything you say after that is who you are choosing to show up as. And so if you're stuck in limbo, ask yourself, I'm the kind of man who, or I'm the kind of woman who, and then what are you currently doing today? Are you procrastinating? Are you, stalling? Are you fearful? And then what would be the kind of person you would have to be in order to move forward? And I think when you do that, then that clarity starts to come in and your vision and your focus, and you can set yourself a true North Star about where it is that I'm going, what is that ultimate goal? And so in the moment, I know what to do. And I think if you can do those things, that will help get you out of limbo. And of course, things always are much more exciting and much more fun if you can find a community or a tribe or whoever that is, whatever that small group that helps and support you, because not everybody will be supporting you, but there are going to be those that can. And maybe you know those people today and maybe you don't. And so that might be part of that mission, that idea of moving forward. And so being in limbo is really about recommitting yourself to what it is that you want out of life, and then starting to be much more clear with the direction and what it is you need to do, and then just take that one step. Rome isn't built in a day. Lots of analogies we can use around that, but it truly is being clear about why you're wanting to do this and then making a step forward with it.
I love that very much. And for the people listening who are sitting there going, okay, I need more of this in my life. I need to get resourced. I need to get mentored. My husband needs a mentor. Or just get around, the right voices instead of the wrong ones. Where's the best place for them to connect with you, learn from you, or to dig deeper?
Yeah, the best place to go is go to my website, theawakenedman.net. And when you go there, you're going to see a little pop-up, and it's a free exercise for you. I call it setting the compass. It's opportunity for you to assess what the last 12 months of your life look like, and then write a newspaper headline of what that would say. And then I ask you to do the same exercise. What would the future 12 months look like? And write that headline. It gives you a flavor for the kind of work that we do here at the Awakened Man, and an opportunity for you to check to see if a group mentorship would work better for you, or if you want more personalized one-on-one. But so go to theawakenedman.net, and look forward to seeing you there.
Yep, I've got the link in the show notes, you guys. You can find that down there. Alan, thank you so much for showing up the way that you do. And thank you for not sugarcoating the mission and calling and integrity. A lot of people talk about purpose like it's just a mood board or a fancy Pinterest quote, but you've actually lived it. You made your mess your message. You rebuilt from it. You bled through it, and you came out with something worth sharing. And I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for that. I appreciate that, and for sharing it here too. And for everybody listening, if you're resonating with the conversation, there's a calling on your life and you're tired of watching it from the sidelines, please get plugged in with me as well. Head to my website, brandonlynette.com, sign up for the love letters. That's where I send the deep stuff. Okay. It's where I remind you who you are and what you're built for. Make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel because I film full episodes and you guys can watch those video versions. Okay. Go subscribe, binge the episodes, and join the conversation. Make sure you share this episode here. We know a lot of wives would be happy for their husbands to be able to get a little wisdom from Ellen today to make masculinity cool again. So you guys answer the calling, do the assignment, don't die with your purpose still in you, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much again, Ellen.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.